to think about is, how do you define success? And a little corollary to that from this day's reading is, I don't think success is defined by the number of fish we catch. So they did a survey a few years ago of Duke University School of Business students, and they asked them what they thought were the measures of success for their business program. Here were the top 3 answers. The students hoped that by the end of their business program, they would make more money, have more power, and have more things. That's how they measured their success. Well, actually, when you look at Webster's dictionary, it's not all that different from that definition. In fact, there are 2 definitions according to Webster. The first one they say is an obsolete definition. The obsolete definition is success is to attain one's goals. That's obsolete. The preferred definition is to attain wealth, favor, and eminence. So by that definition of Webster, probably most of the people that I know and love, including myself, will not be successes in life. How do you define success? My premise for today is that the miracle that we heard in our gospel reading today, the miracle was not the number of fish. The miracle was that Peter, James, and John recognized that despite their lifetime's work, success was not in the number of fish that they finally caught, but is in their willingness to leave it all behind. So as the story begins, we know that Jesus has been teaching and healing, and he's come to the shore of the Sea of Galilee. Now, our reading today calls it Lake Gennesaret, but that's one of several names for this same body of water known as the Sea of Galilee. And crowds are following Jesus to listen to him teach. And so Jesus gets to the shore of the Sea of Galilee, and he sees 2 boats there. And the fishermen, of course, have been done fishing for the day, and they are off taking care of their nets, getting ready for the next day. It's a little bit, I think, rude of Jesus, because this is what he does. He gets in one of the boats. And then he calls for Simon to help push him out into the lake a little bit. And so then he begins to teach from the boat to all the crowds that are gathered at the shore. Now, what's interesting about this text is Luke has nothing to say about what Jesus taught. That's not what's important to Luke about this story. What's important to Luke in this story is what happens with Simon and James and John and the other disciples, fishermen. So what happens next is that Jesus talks to these fishermen, these folks that have been fishing all of their lives. These folks whose fathers have been fishing all of their lives. And Jesus says, I have a different way to fish. Jesus, the carpenter, the one who made his living perhaps by doing some repair of homes and furniture building, he thinks he has a better way to fish. So he tells these fishermen, go out into the deep water and put down your nets again. Simon is thinking about it, and I'm not sure what he's thinking. He does protest. He does say, well, we've been fishing all night and have caught nothing. The other thing I was thinking about is presumably there's still some people from this crowd that are on the shore. And do the fishermen really want to see the crowd to see that they don't really catch very many fish? I doubt it. But nevertheless, Simon does what Jesus asks. He puts the nets out another time. And as we hear, success. There is a net full of fish, so full. There's so many fish that the net begins to break. There are so many fish that they have to call the other boats to come and help. There are so many fish that both boats begin to sink. Now finally, they get all these fish to shore. Peter is amazed by these fish. And he's so afraid that he knows he's been in the presence of the holy that he falls down on you? That you've had such an experience of the holy, of God, that really it makes you want to fall on your knees. And what Peter says is, get away from me, Jesus. It's just too much. But as they bring the fish to shore, they leave it. You know, Peter, all of his life, had been waiting for this time when he would catch so many fish, right? And what does he do? He leaves them. Maybe the miracle isn't the number of fish, but maybe the miracle is that this man who measured success by the number of fish he caught learned the true definition of success. That it's not in the numbers of fish, but it's in the people. Jesus says, from now on, you will catch people. It's the relationship that we have with other people throughout our lives. That becomes the measure of our success. It's not in the numbers. You know, I think if you are like me, you probably grew up in a culture among your family and among peers where numbers feel very important. My family, we measured success at school by the grades that we got. We measured success by what schools we went to, what degrees we earned, what titles we earned. As we get older and as adults, very often we measure success by the number of clients or customers or congregants we have, by the number of emails we hear from, or the number of sermons that we write, or the number of Super Bowl rings that we run. We measure success by the number of runs we've batted in, or the goals that we've scored, or the followers we have on Twitter, or the likes we have on Instagram. Jesus says there's another way to measure success, and it's not by the number of fish. They left it all behind to follow him. You know, tonight we are going to DC Sunday Suppers. And it's an unusual service project because really the point is not to serve supper. We're not even bringing food. The real point of our gathering together with those who are homeless at the corner of 14th and K Street is to develop a relationship with at least one person who is homeless. That's a challenge. We're not counting the number of meals that we serve or the number of blankets we hand out. Tonight will be a success when we talk to one person. We will be catchers of people. Success is not in the numbers of fish, but is in the relationships that we build. A friend of mine has a sister who has early onset Alzheimer's disease. And it's really very sad for her as she sees her sister decline over these last few months especially, and she really doesn't talk a lot anymore. She's in her early 70s, and she's quiet these days, doesn't have a lot to say. So earlier this week, she took her sister to lunch, and they were on their way home, and as they were driving home, all of a sudden, her sister spoke up and said, "Let's stop there. At that house." My friend was a little bit puzzled, but her sister was insistent. "Let's stop there at that house." Now my friend had a question. She wasn't sure if that would be a stranger's house or actually whether her sister knew somebody who lived at that house. But she was so insistent that she stopped. They pulled up to the driveway. Her sister got out of the car and rang the doorbell, and a woman came to the door. And it turns out they had been friends for years. It also turned out her sister had visited her the day before. But what's beautiful, I think, about this story is that nearing the end of her life, when her mind is disturbed and she has forgotten so much, what does she remember? The relationship with this person. They had worked together. My friend's sister was a nurse. And at the end of her life, what measured success was not the number of patients that she cured or helped, or wasn't the degrees or the titles that she had. She was the director of nursing. But what meant most, what makes her life successful at the end of her life, is this relationship. As we go through this week, as we think of all the things that we do to make ourselves successful, maybe we can make one relationship. And maybe that's the best measure of success. Amen. I invite you to stand as we sing number 817 in the red hymnal.